Morning, everybody. World War I began in Europe in 1914. The American Expeditionary Force arrived in 1918. And it was on this date in 1918, on June the 1st, that the Marine Corps was engaged in a very intense and ferocious battle with the Germans, and that was the battle at Belleau Wood. This map shows how Germany was blockaded by the Royal Navy when World War I began. And this really hurt the German economy. So the Germans responded by attacking British-bound merchant ships with submarines, known as the U-boat. And some of those British-flagged ships came from the United States. So here's an ad that the German government put in newspapers warning Americans to stay off British-flagged ships. But when the Lusitania was sunk in May of 1915, with Americans on board, this made the American people really upset, even though the Germans had sort of warned them about it. And many people see this as one of the reasons we get involved in World War I eventually. So here's the map of the 1916 election. Woodrow Wilson had promised to stay out of World War I. But when this became public, it's known as the Zimmermann Note. Arthur Zimmermann was the German Foreign Secretary, and he had sent a telegram to Mexico offering to help Mexico get land back it lost in the war with Mexico if Mexico would fight the United States. When this was decoded by Britain and given to the Americans, people were outraged and war seemed inevitable. We did have a draft. Here's the famous Uncle Sam Wants You poster. And the #1 general at the time was John Pershing, pictured here. So Pershing was in charge of what became known as the American Expeditionary Force, which was our army that was going off to fight in Europe. And when the Germans realized the Americans were actually going to send up to 1 million soldiers, perhaps, the Germans realized they had to get going with one big final push before the Americans got involved. And it was in January of 1918 that President Wilson issued his 14 points, kind of an idealistic view of the world after the war. Didn't turn out that way, though, did it? So anyway, in the spring of 1918, Germany did a final offensive. That's the purple hash-marked area, hoping to capture Paris and defeat the French before the Americans showed up. And, of course, the British were there, too. But we did show up in the spring into the summer, and the orange areas are the places where our army fought, sometimes independently, sometimes alongside the British and the French. And Belleau Wood is in the middle, toward the bottom on this map. So our event is on this date, June 1, 1918. A battle began in a wooded area called Belleau Wood. It lasted for weeks, and it was pretty intense, lots of back and forth. The Americans were eventually victorious, and elsewhere, the Allies really were helped by American soldiers. So in November of 1918, the armistice was signed, and World War I ended. But you'll notice, everybody, it's not a treaty. It's just an armistice for the fighting to stop. So here I am at Chateau Thierry. This is the site of a big memorial to the American Army. It's the largest memorial to our Army outside of the United States. And it's right near Belleau Wood. And there was a battle at Chateau Thierry here. And here I am at the map that's part of that, sort of pointing out where we are. And in that area is a cemetery to the American dead of World War I. And it's worth a visit. It's very, very somber, and it's very important. So here's a memorial at Belleau Wood to the Marine Corps. This was a big battle for the Marines. It's a red letter day in their history. And the Marine Corps furnished and furnishes maps and guides for walking the battlefield. So here I am in front of some rifle pits that were still there. And part of the original trench line is still there. So if you ever get to that part of France, it's east of Paris a bit, check it out. It's pretty important. But Woodrow Wilson went to Versailles. Here he is on the right to try to hammer out a lasting peace. But the legacy of World War I was not that, was it?